Hi, this is the Limitless Infinite, and I am Trinity 6, and I'm here to help you align your mind to higher vibrations and higher frequencies. And this video is going to be about the power of love. So, I've recently been reading and listening to the discourses of Saint Germain, and they said something in the discourse the other day that kind of resonated with me. So, I just wanted to make a video about my own personal perspective and interpretation of it as well. So, they just said that love is a power. And so when I heard that, I was like, that makes sense, because I was kind of thinking like love is a frequency. And so love is a power, frequency, a feeling. But it is often associated as an emotion. And we also know, sort of associate as emotions being the lower chakras and the heart center, the heart chakra being the one of feeling. And so when we're talking about love as a frequency, love has a certain vibration to it, and that frequency emanates through your heart chakra, but it's the lower chakras, like your gut and your intuition, that basically are able to tell you whether or not you are transmitting or receiving this love frequency and how much you're transmitting and how much you're receiving. And the reason I say transmitter or receiver is because people often associate when you associate it as an emotion, people think of it, love, as something that we give to people and that we take from people. But love is also the energetic quality of this frequency really happens when we're connected to source. We access this frequency. And so if you are a light worker, starseed, or anybody that's done energy work of any kind, they talk about this connection to divine source, this divine light. And so when you're connecting to this light, they also say that it's divine love, that this frequency comes through this light connection. And if you think of it that way, it's not an emotion that we give and take. It is literally a frequency that gets transmitted through us. If we are conductors and sort of conduits, not conductors, but more conduits and gateways for this light frequency, it means anytime that we are tapped into that, we are also tapping into this love frequency. And it doesn't really matter how much you work with energy, you are tapped into this divine source energy. It's just some people are more aware of it, are able to sort of apply and direct it into specific things within their life, and then some people just aren't really as aware of their connection to this divine source energy. So when we think of it this way, we're able to understand that love is a frequency that we're all emitting. So basically, when you are a receiver transmitter, like if you have a transmitter on and it's transmitting a frequency, there's never a time it's not transmitting. And if you are a receiver turned on, there's never a time when you're not in the act of trying to receive or pick up these other frequencies that you've been specified for, I guess you could say, or even not specified for. But if you're alive, you are basically a transmitter and receiver on all the time. There is never a time when you are not on. So if you have the idea that you are not loved or don't have enough love, or even if you're a kind of person that thinks that you're always giving love, it really isn't necessarily that way. You're either transmitting or receiving, which means that you're always open to these signals, and it's just kind of like playing with the dials. Sometimes you're transmitting more or less, and sometimes you're receiving more or less. So when we say it this way, we can think love is a power, and we amplify it to different degrees depending on the defined relationship. So when your transmitter is on, which it always is, your physical body becomes the receiver. Your heart chakra is the receiver for your physical body to be able to pick up this frequency. And we amplify it with our emotional body. And the way that we do that is that our mental body comes in and defines the relationship. And I would say even sometimes this can be the opposite way. I think for a lot of times, most commonly, people get a mental idea of what kind of relationship they have with the person that they're interacting with, or the place or experience or object or plants or animals. And when your mind defines it, it then communicates to your emotional body how much it wants to amplify the frequency. So if you're doing something like, petting a cat and you don't really like cats, the frequency won't be that amplified. But if you're with a dog and you love dogs and you have this totally different feeling, it means you turned up your transmitter or you turned up your amplifier of this receiving frequency. So it's kind of almost like thinking that love frequency is just a steady frequency that always comes in, and then we are the fine tuners of amplifying how much this frequency is vibrating with us, depending on the experience and how we define it. So if you think of it this way, and I was saying too, it can also be the other way around. I mean, I've definitely had experiences where I've met people that I didn't know at all, and I get this feeling. I can just like, even before I was getting into a lot of this information, it was like, I could feel it. I think that's like what a lot of people say, just like instant chemistry sometimes with people. You have to be discerning, because I think sometimes when you're having like a sort of sexual connection with somebody in that way and that kind of attraction, it's a little bit different. But if you just, I've met people before that I haven't really known, and I can just feel this different kind of vibration. And then I think, so that's what I mean, is sometimes you can kind of, all of a sudden, it's like there's some kind of inner knowing and you're amplifying it. And then all of a sudden, now you're like, okay. And then you meet this person and you talk, and then after that, you're going to put a definition to what that relationship is. And I think part of that too, especially when it happens with someone that you don't really know, can be that the other person is having some kind of feeling, and then they're transmitting to you. So it could be that the both of you, especially now that we know about soul families and soul mates and twin flames, that if you're meeting someone and you just have that vibrational quality, that you obviously might have known this person in the past, or they might be part of your soul family or soul tribe, and then basically your souls are recognizing that, and they're both amplifying their frequency so that you, the both of you, can make the connection that, hey, something's going on here. So our body, when it's working, and the other thing too is our heart chakra has to be able to be a good receiver. You have to make sure that energy center is working properly, so that when you're picking up these other frequencies, and they're going to be amplified at different amounts too, depending on how somebody else is sending you this frequency, you have to be able to receive it. And then you use things like your intuition and your gut. You also use your brain a little bit when you're observing behavior to be able to decide how much this person is transmitting back to you. And then you also in that moment decide how much you're willing to receive it. Because you've also met people where they obviously were transmitting something to you and you weren't that into it. So it doesn't necessarily mean that if one person's sending the transmission that you're necessarily ready to reciprocate that same level of amplification. And all that means is you're still a receiver, so you're picking it up. But if you're like, they're sending this like more amplified frequency, love frequency, and I don't really want to reciprocate it at that same level, you still received it because you got the message, but then you have to be able to tell the person or decide or leave the situation if it's not something that you really want to reciprocate. So a good way that I personally have been able to tell if my heart chakra is really working, not say working, but like in tune with the fact that it is a constant receiver for this love frequency, as I say to myself, sort of like one of my self mantras, I radiate pure love when I'm truthful to who I am. And I can literally feel like this inner smile when I say it. And I think the reason for that is to radiate pure love. To me, when I say pure love, it has to do with this connection to source. So if you know that you are the source energy and the source energy is you, it's what people would call divine love. It is this love that has no definitions, it has no judgments, it has no expectations, it has no conditions. And that's a lot of what we do. When we use love as an emotion during our human experience, we do a lot of this. Love with conditions, love with certain expectations, love with certain definitions, depending on what our previous experiences have been. But when you're radiating pure love and connecting to divine source and feeling that frequency, and I say pure because that it doesn't have all these basically layers or filters that the human brain puts on it, you can feel that connection. And I always say truthful to who I am, because love and truth to me go hand in hand. Part of raising into the fifth dimension and getting there, using love as this cohesive thing that's going to bring us all together, is the first part is understanding that we're transmitters and receivers and we're always on, understanding how to apply this frequency in your relationships, knowing when to turn it up, knowing when to turn it down, how to be self-aware of that and evaluate that going on in you and other people or in your experiences. And then being truthful, because one of the hardest obstacles, I think, for a lot of people is being really honest and not saying something to make somebody else happy or to pacify a situation. Or you get this a lot, even not necessarily lying, but even just not expressing who you really are 100% of the time. And a lot of times this happens, I think, when people just think it's nice to be accommodating, to kind of bend what you really want or how you really feel, because you don't want to make somebody else feel bad, or you want to be able to make somebody else happy. But when you do that, it's not being 100% truthful. And if you're radiating this pure frequency, you have to know that anytime you tell your truth, it's up to somebody else, as part of somebody else's inner work and inner journey, to be able to accept your truth no matter what it is. Even if it's something that you don't want to hear, even if it was something that, wasn't really something that you wanted, or somebody said something to you, even if it's something that ends up to be hurtful and somebody says, well, I don't like you. And a lot of people get, upset. They have a certain feeling. But if you can honor that at least somebody told you their truth, and maybe it was somebody that you really liked, or maybe it was somebody that you wanted to like, but at the end of the day, you have to always go back and think, it's better to know the truth than for somebody to pretend that they like you, and then the minute you leave, for them to either talk about you or to just be in a negative state because they don't really want to have to spend time with you, but they don't know how to say no, so they're just kind of, basically placating with you all the time because they don't know how to be truthful. So when we open up to being able to be honest, and then also let other people be honest with us without being judgmental, we're able to radiate this sort of pure frequency of love. And so I feel like prior to getting to this point where you can be that person that's 100% honest and sort of lack any kind of judgment for somebody else that's not quite to that point of understanding it, you're still a transmitter and receiver of this love frequency, and it's still coming through. But like I said, it's almost coming through these different filters, these different layers that we have as humans. And a lot of that really comes from how you were brought up, the relationships that you've had prior to this, or experiences you've had prior to this that were surrounded by this idea of love, whether you knew it was love, whether it wasn't love. And so taking out those filters really have to do with the fact that we've kind of all been pre-programmed for a very long time that love is just something that we give, and we take love from, I don't want to say take, but we receive love from people. You do receive it, but it's not like in the moment you give it and then it's just constantly emitted. I feel like some people, I feel like with families, it's more general. Like, you always know that your parents love you, even if they're not there, like, in person giving you love. Like, that frequency always exists for you, and you can tap into it if you want to or don't. But a lot of times when we get older, when we start getting into, our adolescent, even I think for kids, when you're trying to make new friends and you're trying to expand your social capabilities, a lot of this love and idea of love really comes into play. I guess a lot when you're in your teens, because that's when you first start having other relationships with other people outside of your family and in your social circles, and even with friendships, because you have different layers of love within your friendships as well. But anyway, I just wanted to get this message out to basically help people come into the understanding that you're always emitting this love frequency. So the frequency itself is almost just always the same. It's always at this vibrational state. It is a feeling that comes through. And emotions I feel like your emotions also, that's the emotional body affecting the amplification of this love frequency. So just know that it's two separate things. Love is the frequency that comes in, but the emotion that we feel attached to love is our emotional body either turning it up or turning it down. And then the mental body is also kind of puts parameters on the emotional body of how much to turn it up and how much to turn it down. So if you want to be able to get in more control of it, you are able to kind of know what's going on in your thoughts and be self-aware about what you're thinking about the situation or the person or the thing or the place. And then you'll have more control with your emotional body to be able to turn it up and be able to turn it down. And then to remember that you can radiate the pure frequency if you're being truthful and if you're being honest. So I hope this video helped. If you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. I just like to open up the discussion, and I'll see you guys in my next video.